Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by Chief Agricultural Editor of SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh, 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young, and I'm Doug Falconer, GX94 Agriculture Director in Yorkton. And starting here in Yorkton, the big news probably this week was the announcement by LDC of a pea production plant to be built here in Yorkton. What was your reaction when you heard the news, Kevin?
Great news. So whenever you hear of more secondary processing, takes the load off the railway, shipping out raw product, creates jobs, creates economic activity. Surprising though, and I think you guys maybe chased trying to get an interview with Louis Dreyfus on this. But a $500 million facility, that's a huge investment. 60 full-time jobs, that's very good. But I never did hear a number on what they say the proposed capacity of this plant is, how many tons or hundreds of thousands of tons this pea protein facility will need from producers. And that I'll be interested to know when that number comes out, be able to compare it with the big Roquette plant in Portage la Prairie that was set up a few years ago, just to try to get a magnitude of how much demand this is going to create.
Yeah, I did a lot of emailing back and forth with LDC. Their head office is in Connecticut, so I'm guessing it's basically a New York area head office. And they just wouldn't provide a person to speak in person on this matter, just saying to refer to the news release. And I guess fortunately for me, I spoke with the mayor of Yorkton and the MLA for Yorkton, who filled us in on a lot of the details that at least they knew about this plant. And I mean, they're building on site. LDC is already doubling the capacity of their canola crushing plant. JRI doubling the capacity of their canola crushing plant here in Yorkton. I think pound for pound, Yorkton's swinging above their weight when it comes to agriculture and when it comes to these, obviously value added.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And with the doubling of the canola crushing plants between RPI and LDC as well, it expresses or demonstrates a lot of confidence in the Yorkton area. That area being a agriculture-driven economy, so that's good news. Another guy who was singing praises about the announcement was the executive director of the Saskatchewan Pulse Growers, Carl Potts. Not only was he saying he was thrilled with the announcement, but he also pointed out that it would hopefully create more demand for pulses and pea protein, especially domestically and abroad. And also considering how the pea market has changed over the last 5-10 years, this is positive news. As you know, India and China, they're big customers of pulse crops. India, they have their tariffs and restrictions on pulses until very recently. And China also buying quite a bit of pulse crops and pea protein as well. So all in all, very good announcement.
We've also seen here in Yorkton the grain millers has been expanding for oats production, and of course Harvest Meats is well known for its meat production here as well. So a lot going on here in Yorkton. Other news, I guess yesterday we did hear that Agri-Food exports from Saskatchewan were breaking records again. What did you think of that news, Ryan?
I thought it wasn't too surprising. The province pointing out that this was I believe the fourth or fifth year in a row that there was a record set in terms of agri-food exports. $20.2 billion worth, from what I understand. So not a big surprise there. We are an agriculturally driven economy for the province. So all in all, it's good news, and it just goes to show, how good we are and how much potential, how much more potential also that we have in years to come. What do you think, Kevin?
I think it's great news, but I would expect that we may take a step back because we're still a major exporter of raw commodities. And if you look at what prices have done for a lot of the commodities over the past year, it's down dramatically. And of course, much of our agriculture is driven by the crop side rather than livestock side. Cattle prices are good, but the crops really dictate what our export potential is, and volumes may actually increase, but the prices drop so significantly that a year from now, when these stats come out, there might be some retrenchments in our exports because of dropping commodity prices.
Well, speaking of those dropping commodity prices, canola closed down for the week again. Ryan, you spoke with Adam Pacalo from PI Financial in Winnipeg, and once again, yeah, it's just keeps free falling for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly. He pointed out there was a report done by Statistics Canada on their grain stocks as of December 31st, 2023. And he noted that canola experienced about a 1.3% increase year over year to around 12.4-ish million tons. Kind of a bearish report, basically. There was also a USDA report that he also said was pretty bearish when it comes to soybeans. So all in all, not really a positive outlook for canola, at least not only now, but what we've seen in recent months.
Kevin?
Well, it's really interesting that canola typically is one of our most profitable crops, or has been many years out of the past decade. But Regland Commodities is one of the organizations. Well, I do a fair bit of business through Regland, so they allowed me to see their most recent spreadsheet on a profitability analysis of 20 Saskatchewan crops. And canola is really, I think it was like 12th or 13th on the list, just barely profitable, giving an assumption of a new crop price of only $13 a bushel. And I think they were using, a typical yield, not the highest yield, but a typical yield of around 45 bushels an acre on canola. And it's not a shining star anymore. And that's a huge major commodity for Saskatchewan, and really our biggest acreage wise, biggest money earner. So that's pretty stark when you see that sort of a comparison. On the upside, in lentil growing areas, lentils are the most profitable crop when in the Regland analysis. At the very bottom of the list are crops like flax and soybeans and faba beans.
All right, and of course, there was news out of the United States this week regarding dicamba, and the ruling that it can no longer be used on certain crops in the States. I guess it doesn't, though, apply to us here in Canada, Kevin.
No, and the company did issue a release saying what's happening in the U.S. does not have any bearing on Canada. Dicamba, and people will remember it from 40 years ago, it was Banville as a trade name, but dicamba comes in a number of different formulations now. But with it being used on herbicide-resistant soybeans in the States, they've run into tremendous problems with spray drift because it's rather volatile and damaging a bunch of crops. And maybe they'll get this turned around in the U.S., but right now it looks like things could be curtailed down there dramatically for dicamba. That does not appear, according to the company news release, to be the case here in Canada. Business as usual here in Canada, including on the soybeans where dicamba are resistant.
And finally, today, Ryan, I know you had a chance to talk to Terry Lang from Environment Canada regarding the January weather stats, and January is going to be a month that not too many people are going to forget anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. Also for us too, personally. Um, Even she said too, this is, one for the record books for sure. Starting out the month of January, it was kind of a continuing trend from December. It was warm and it was dry, right around temperatures of 0 and above or just below. And then towards the 11th to the 14th, there was that Arctic air that kind of settled in the province, and that resulted in, I believe, 27 different records being set in terms of the minimum temperature. Leader being the coldest at minus 46.4, and that's just way too cold for anybody for that matter. And so after that was the 27th to the 31st. It warmed up again to warmer temperatures, which set 69 new weather records. So it's just really a tale of two extremes. And I believe Maple Creek was one of the hottest spots in Saskatchewan. They topped out at 21.1 degrees Celsius. Like that's just a typical day in June or July, and it's January that's happening. So I can't imagine how everybody was feeling about that. So it was just unreal. And Another thing too was the mean temperatures, the monthly mean temperatures. They read that they were in the minus mid-teens, like minus 14, minus 15, minus 12. That was a lot of weather stations reporting that. But Lang says it doesn't tell the whole story because of the tale of the two extreme weather conditions that we had at the beginning and towards the end of the month. So just a wacky month overall when it comes to the temperatures, the records being set. She's hoping that in terms of moisture, that's a big question for farmers, obviously. Are we going to get some moisture? There wasn't a whole lot of that precipitation wise for January, but she says that the El Nino has peaked and is forecast to uh, weaken over the course of the spring and turn into a La Nina in the fall. So we'll see how that all kind of plays out weather wise, but there is some hope that there's going to be some moisture between now and right around seeding time.
And of course, that cold temperature had to hit while the three of us were all together at the crop production show in Saskatoon.
Yeah, on average, January didn't look bad. It was just, but averages can be pretty deceiving from record cold, record warm, pretty amazing months. But I agree entirely with Ryan. The big thing is, can we get some significant precipitation going forward as spring rapidly approaches?
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this week. And on behalf of Ryan Young, the 620 CKRM Agri-News Director in Regina, and Chief Agricultural Editor Kevin Hursh of SaskAgToday.com, I'm Doug Falconer from GX94 in Yorkton saying so long until next week.